So we got the Trek Slash, we got SRAM Code R brakes, Centreline rotors, 200 at the front, 180 at the back. I've got the IceTech rotor on the back at the moment. Got the IceTech rotor here. Been running the IceTech rotors for quite a while, probably 6 weeks, maybe over a month. They've been on there for a bit, and the idea was to test whether these are stronger, just the disc itself create a stronger braking bite than the Avid Centreline discs. Now, what I've learned from this test is the stuff that I use to wash my bike, the CT18 Super Wash, the car wash, must ever so slightly contaminate the pads bit by bit, and then incrementally over time the bite becomes less pronounced. I've found with bikes that I've ridden with XT brakes, so the whole XT setup, have just been really strong, real easy on the fingers, and consistent. They're really consistent, wet or dry, they feel really good. And I thought maybe it's the disc, maybe it's the pad, maybe it's the whole lot, but I wanted to test whether it's disc only. Now, I didn't think there was too much difference. I thought, yeah, the biggest difference was my pads were contaminated previously. So I changed the pads in the front, didn't change the pads in the back. The back stayed more or less the same, felt exactly the same as the old rotor, but the front, when I changed the pads over, became super bitey again. And I thought, yeah, these are really strong, but I don't know if it's any stronger than what the SRAM codes feel when they're new before you contaminate your brake pads. So I kicked on and decided I'm going to change the disc back. So same brake pads. I haven't washed this bike since I put these, so it's been at least a month since I've washed the bike. Been giving it rinses and whatever, but no suds whatsoever. Swapping back to the Centreline rotor, same disc, scrubbed everything in, given it a few rides to bring on the full power, and there's full power there now. It is ever so slightly less powerful with the Centreline brake. This just has more all-out endo power. So when you endo, you just got a little bit more power for the amount of finger you're putting into it. Now, these discs themselves are a little thinner. They're just slightly thinner than the SRAM ones. So when you put them in, you have more free stroke on your lever. So I'm not huge on that, but that's easy to you can bleed that out to an extent. The SRAM code brakes are the code R's at least, are a little restricted with their setup, but no biggie. If you've got some codes, these are definitely it's a slight upgrade. It's a slight upgrade. Maybe they're less susceptible to, actually they're not. They're not less susceptible to contamination, because the contamination happens in the pad, I believe, not so much on the face of the disc. The disc does get contaminated as well, but it's easier to rectify than the pad contamination. So once I sorted the pad contamination out, it was clear that this is ever so slightly stronger than the SRAM Centreline matched up on a code brake. So if you want the full service and you do want that extra bite, that little bit extra strength, the Shimano XT entire brake setup, I believe, is a little stronger. So the pads may be a little less susceptible to contamination, the Shimano pads versus the SRAM pads. The brake itself may be ever so slightly stronger. The lever, I like the feel of the XT lever. Yeah, but I guess for the purposes of this video, Shimano XT rotor versus Centreline rotor, ever so slight. I'd give this if this was a 10 out of 10, I'd give the SRAM rotor a 9 out of 10, or maybe an 8.5, probably a 9. It's almost identical. It's just ever so slightly weaker. So yeah, these will probably end up going back on. Maybe one day I'll swap it over to a full XT brake setup. We'll see if I can get something cheap. But for now, I'm happy with the code. To be honest, I'm happy with the code with the SRAM brakes. As long as I don't contaminate them, I'm happy with them. But I've just got to not contaminate those pads or stay on top of it. So yeah, if you're in the market and you're heavy, XT full brakes are gonna be an improvement over the SRAM codes for sure. But if you just want to, make a start, these rotors are good, and keep your pads clean. Don't contaminate your pads.